Do what we can.
So last time I was down in Viroqua was the weekend, the Friday before Joe Biden dropped out. And since then, we've seen a lot of new energy coming into the Democratic Party with the elections for November. And then seeing Tim Walz from Minnesota. Look, I know they've got bad sports teams, but he's still the upper Midwest, right? And he sounds and looks like us and understands where we're coming from. That's a strong ticket. And that's going to help us even more to win in a district like Wisconsin 3, because we need 4 seats to get the majority in Congress, to make Hakeem Jeffries the next Speaker of the House of Representatives. Wisconsin 3 is on that top 10 or 20 list that you have to go after to win, and we've got commitments from those in Washington to be helpful to win this seat. So it's really, really important. You know, you have one of America's most embarrassing members of Congress right now, Derek Van Norden. That's tough. I mean, I serve with Marjorie Taylor Greene, I serve with Lauren Boebert, I serve with Matt Gaetz, but I serve with Derek Van Norden. And you might have saw the other day, I think he did 29 tweets in 2 hours. And it was about 7 p.m., I think after happy hour in Prairie du Chien, right? That kind of fits with Derek as we understand him. But we've got to be able to beat him. And you do it by putting your best candidate forward in the primary. And let me tell you my 3 reasons why I think Katrina is absolutely our best candidate. 1, she's been an outstanding state legislator. You see the breadth of groups endorsing her, from environment to labor, good government, on and on. She has the backing of people who've worked with her, and she's passed 225 bipartisan bills. Derek has officially passed 1 bill in his entire term in Congress, and we have a strong contrast there. 2, in her district, was a very competitive district pre this redistricting. She outperformed it by 3 or 4 points every time, top of the ticket, over even our statewide elected Dems. This district you win with that little bit of an extra percent. So we need to make sure we're doing that. She can perform at that level. And 3, look, I'm actually turning 60 on Wednesday. This session, I hit the median age of Congress. It lowered 2 years, luckily, because it's down to 56 and a half. It was 58 and a half. We need younger leaders who are going to be the future for our state and to be out there. And let me be blunt, we've got 3 young people running in the primary right now. But the group that nationally is trying to do this, Leaders We Deserve, the group that's trying to find that next generation, looked at the 3 candidates and said, if we're going to win this district, we need to be with the strongest candidate, and that's Katrina Shankland. So, a lot of reasons why she's the person to back. I have the pleasure, though, of introducing someone who is with that group, Leaders We Deserve, who many of you may know from the very unfortunate incidents that happened in Parkland and the shootings. He has taken that experience and gone out to be a national advocate to stop gun violence, to have sanity in how we are treating guns in this country. I'm proud to back many of the pieces of legislation that he is also backing, but he now is taking this group forward to find more good, younger leaders so that at 60, I'm not just hitting that median age. So we get the full representation of the American people. Let me now introduce our friend, and we're very glad to have him with us today, David Hogg.
I started out with the idea for Leaders We Deserve because I was in college and I actually hired Maxwell from my freshman dorm room. He originally didn't take the job, and I called him and I said, please, for the sake of God, you're one of the best organizers I've ever seen. March needs you. Will you please take this job? And he did. And he organized with us for several years, and he called me up 2 years after I hired him. And he said, David, I have good news and bad news. The good news is I'm running for Congress, but the bad news is I have to leave March for Our Lives to do that, and I need your support. And I said, well, you know, Maxwell, I don't trust politicians, right? But I told Maxwell, I don't see you as a politician, I see you as a friend. And at this point, I had never really endorsed anybody before because I just was so used to being used over and over again by politicians that wanted to have my name next to theirs, but not really deliver, right? And I saw Maxwell as somebody who could truly make a difference for our generation. So he was out there, and when he first ran, I said, you know, you're 24, right? You have to be 25 to be elected to Congress. And he said, yes, I'll be old enough by that time. And I ended up raising Maxwell about $400,000 in his first 2 quarters for Congress, which is insane that you need to raise that much money, right? But he was running against 2 former members of Congress, a guy who was a hedge fund manager. I forget their names, honestly, because they're irrelevant now. But One of them was a hedge fund manager while they were in Congress, just what we need more of. And the other had committed tax fraud while they were in Congress as well. Florida politics is great. And everybody told me, you know, Maxwell's a great guy, but, you know, he's too young. He doesn't have the money. He doesn't have the experience. He can't win. And I said, well, I've heard that before. After Parkland, people told us the same thing. They said, you kids are never going to change anything in Florida because you're just a bunch of dumb kids. And what happened to you is awful, but this is Florida. Nothing changes here. But we did. We raised the age to buy a gun after Parkland to 21 because those young people stood up and showed up at their state legislature. And we passed a red flag law that can disarm people that are a risk to themselves or others. And that's important. That's important because the shooter at my high school, while he was a criminal, he wasn't a criminal mastermind with deep connections to the black market or something like that. He was a deranged 19-year-old anti-Semite that repeatedly threatened to shoot up my high school and was able to legally obtain an AR-15 and continue to own that AR-15 despite repeatedly threatening to shoot up my high school and being reported to the FBI and local law enforcement multiple times because there was no legal infrastructure to remove that firearm from him, right? That is who the NRA says is the responsible gun owner who's threatened by things like a red flag law, right? That have due process and a right to counsel in them. And I know the impact of these laws and the impact of us having the hope to believe that change was possible. After Parkland, my mother got a death threat from an NRA supporter that said, F with the NRA and you'll be DOA. But because of us passing that law after Parkland, because we had the audacity to hope and believe that change was possible, we were able to disarm the man that threatened to kill my own mother using that law. Had we not passed that law, I may have had to bury my own mother. That same law has been used 12,000 times since the shooting in Parkland. So if anybody goes out there and says, you just can't do this, that this isn't possible, that you're being outspent, that this is too hard, that they're just not going to win, that's not true. More often than not in life, the biggest obstacle to creating change isn't whether or not it's actually possible. The biggest obstacle is whether or not people believe it's possible. And in this election, it is possible. Because I know that Derek doesn't represent this district. He doesn't represent the values of our country, especially as somebody who claims to be a patriot, but is there on January 6th. I don't know about you guys, but I think there's one place where somebody who participated in January 6th belongs, and it's not in Congress. Prison. And Maxwell ended up winning in that election. He won by 10%, despite what professors and so many other people telling me it wasn't possible. Maxwell became the youngest member of Congress, the first Gen Z person in Congress, and the first Afro-Latino person ever in Congress as well. And what's especially remarkable about that is at the time, Maxwell hadn't even graduated college because he couldn't afford to keep going. He didn't go to an Ivy League. He didn't come from a family that was super well connected. His mom's a teacher and his dad's a local musician, and he's adopted too. But even though Maxwell was a freshman member of Congress, he wasn't able to get housing because as he was running for Congress, he was Uber driving every night from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. every single night, and obviously gained a bit of debt from doing that. But even as a freshman member of Congress, could not get an apartment. We need people with those lived experiences in Congress, not people like Derek who are failed actors and Navy, just people that violate our Constitution so blatantly as they did on January 6th, right? And in this election, Katrina, I looked at this race and I didn't want to get involved in the primary because I thought, let's just focus on the general. Katrina's great, she's going to win. But then I saw some of the disgusting and nasty false attacks being waged against Katrina. I said, you know what, screw that. We're getting involved. Because she has delivered repeatedly for Wisconsin. She's passed 225 bills and got them signed into law despite Republicans mostly being in control during that time period. And it's because she's a damn good legislator. She knows what she is doing. And we've been on a lot of long car rides on this journey to these 9 cities. And on every one of these car rides, my favorite thing is when I talk to Katrina about the experiences that she's had working with her constituents. And these aren't just people who voted for her. These are everybody across the political spectrum, right? Delivering for them. Just on the way here, we were talking about how Republicans were trying to repeal, unemployment benefits, right? And that's a big deal for a lot of blue-collar workers in this state that can only work half of the year because they're out paving the roads, for example, and you can't do that in the winter here, right? And when Katrina told the Republicans, you know, why are you going after our blue-collar workers like that, they got really scared. And they stopped talking about it. And even the ones that were the most adversarial in committee hearings refused to even talk about it. And Katrina went on the attack, and guess what? Those benefits, they didn't get repealed because she is a damn good legislator. And in this election, the other thing that I saw is we have to win this seat. We have to, because the president, thankfully, is not a dictator. There's a system of checks and balances. And you need the House to be able to pass the laws. You can talk about the laws all you want as president, but if you don't have a House that supports your agenda, nothing's going to happen, right? We have to win this seat. And we need the strongest person to defeat Derek. Katrina has proposed debating her opponents over 21 times. Only one time did one of them RSVP and then pulled out at the last minute. Because kids are dying every single day, no matter if Republicans have a trifecta or if Democrats do. We cannot wait until we have a trifecta to get things done. We need somebody who knows how to work across the aisle and get laws passed. That is what Katrina offers. And in this election, the reason I'm here right now, there are 435 other congressional races that I could be in. Right, there's 435 seats. Thank you, Congressman. This is the only one that I am showing up for in this election cycle. The only one. And it's because I know that we have to win this seat, and Katrina is the best person to do that. That's why I'm here right now. I'm here for 6 days total, working with you all, because we have to win this seat to pass gun safety. We can pass all the laws at the state level that we want, but ultimately, if we don't pass them at the federal level, it won't matter. We hear this talking point from Republicans all the time, well, Chicago has strong gun laws. Well, guess what Chicago's next to? Indiana. Those guns aren't coming from Illinois. They're coming from Indiana and being brought in. Until we have federal laws that hold every state to the same standard, you're going to have illegal guns crossing state borders into states with stronger gun laws, right? We need federal action, and that starts with electing Katrina this November and defeating Derek and the NRA's deadly agenda. Because I hear them talk all the time about how Republicans are so supportive of freedom and everything, right? Bullshit.
Everybody, it is such a pleasure to be here with you all. What a beautiful day in Viroqua, and it's always good to be back. Thank you so much for being here. We are standing in the most important swing district in the #1 swing state in the country. And not just the most important swing district for all of the seats in the U.S. House of Representatives, but also for U.S. Senate, for down ballot. You are in Assembly District 96, which is eminently flippable and competitive. So your vote counts so much in this election. And as you all know, because we say it every election, and it really, really is this time especially, the most important election of our lifetimes. Our democracy is hanging by a thread right now because extremist Republicans, including Derek Van Orden, have deliberately been unwinding it for years. This man was at the Capitol on January 6th wearing an earpiece as he every single lever of power in one night in 2010. We lost the U.S. Senate seat, the governor's seat, the legislative chambers, both Senate and Assembly, and we saw extremism and anti-worker policies, anti-women policies, anti-voter policies, and anti-environment policies overnight. And I got involved. I quit my job at a renewable energy nonprofit because I could not stand it one day longer. I knew I had to be out in the field talking to voters. So I worked as an organizer on the recall for 4 different counties.
Yeah.
I knew that I had to put my money where my mouth was. And my parents were public school teachers. They taught me from a very young age, if you're going to see something wrong and complain about it, then you better do something about it too. So we're here to do something about it today. 12 years later, after serving in the state assembly and doing a lot for our workers, families, seniors, farmers, the environment, voting rights, and our democracy, I know and I am called to serve again in our U.S. House of Representatives. It's not just about defeating and kicking out Derek Van Orden from Congress. It is about helping the House Democrats take the majority and protecting and strengthening our democracy and securing and expanding our freedoms. From passing ending Citizens United and passing a critical campaign finance reform laws to strengthening our voting rights. So when you vote, you have the security and knowledge that no insurrectionist can overturn or undermine the will of the people, your sacred vote. We have so much work to do. We also have to codify Roe v. Wade into law on day one of the House Democratic majority. And we're not going to stop there. We're going to expand access to contraception and family planning services and critical needs like IVF, including insurance coverage, so every person can decide when and if to have a family and how to do so in a way that doesn't have a Republican politician in their doctor's office. That's ridiculous. We're not just protecting our democracy and strengthening it and expanding our freedoms when it comes to reproductive freedoms. It's about so many other freedoms. The freedom to live safely and securely in our own communities without fear of getting gunned down in our schools, workplaces, homes, places of worship. The freedom to drink clean, safe water and breathe clean air. The freedom to know that we can love who we love and still be a family without fear of the government coming in and interfering again. The freedom to go to a doctor's office and have good medical coverage and know that we won't go bankrupt for it. Our freedoms are on the line this November, and tomorrow, August 13th, is how we get to win in November. Yeah. So I need your help. We have a critical race. This isn't just the most important swing district in America right now, but we know we need the best candidate to defeat Derek Van Orden, and that's me. And it isn't just because I've served in office for 12 years. It's because I've delivered, and I've been on the front lines fighting for all of you and everyone in Wisconsin. When we had a drinking water problem in central Wisconsin, 1 in 4 of my constituents could not drink their water from their taps. I worked across the aisle as hard as I could to get a bill passed to expand access to an important program to help folks get clean water. One guy got in my way, Speaker Robin Vos. No one is surprised here. No one is surprised. Here's what I did. I went to the governor and the DNR and I called them on a weekly basis as soon as Governor Evers got elected. Literally the day after he got elected is when I first started this process. And I said, I'm going to be as persistent and tireless as possible in telling you about this program because I need my constituents to have clean drinking water yesterday, not tomorrow. Here's what we did together. When the federal government passed the American Rescue Plan Act and the bipartisan infrastructure law, I saw all this money coming into our state, and I asked the DNR and the governor to work with me to get my legislation through because one guy was blocking it. And I knew that we could use federal dollars to do it. So together we launched a $10 million program to get over 500 families in Wisconsin so far clean drinking water from their taps. The majority of those came from Portage County. You know why? I barnstormed my district. I went to every town board meeting, county board meeting, village board meeting. I sat down with my constituents. I knocked every door in a village that had 1 in 2 people who couldn't drink water from their taps. And I told them about the program I launched, and I helped them apply. And because of that work, they can drink water from their taps today.
Sorry about that.
That is important.
They get off the phone. But
running for office and serving in public office isn't just about passing bills. It's about solving problems. It's about being there when people need you, and it's about finding creative solutions. If the door is closed and jammed and the window's shut and I can't get through, I'll break through a wall for my constituents. And that's what I'm going to do in Congress. We're going to keep fighting for clean drinking water. We're going to fight for a fair farm bill that protects and strengthens our local small to mid-sized family farms and puts them first, that actually and fairly funds our conservation title so people can invest in managed grazing and regenerative agriculture while also ensuring food security for our kids, our seniors, our families, the opposite of what Derek Van Orden just did on the Agriculture Committee. So I'm ready on day one in Congress to fight for local regenerative agriculture and small family farmers, to fight for good access to local food and healthcare, to fight for expanded access to reproductive freedom, birth control, and IVF, and most importantly, to kick not only Derek Van Orden, but the special interests out of his office in DC, because we don't need any of those special interests and dark money groups that are funding people like Derek Van Orden in our district, we need a fighter for the people, of the people, and by the people, so that we can actually get things done for everyone. Not yet. So I was asked if the Farm Bill passed. The House Republicans passed a terrible version of the Farm Bill, which gutted food share by $28 billion over 5 years. Then they lied about it. Derek Van Orden had the gall to say that Democrats were misrepresenting the truth. They didn't adjust food share, SNAP benefits to inflation, so people will have less food on their table because of Derek Van Orden. It's not going to pass the Senate, and they know it. They're playing politics with one of the most important bills, not only for us here in Western Wisconsin and the drift list, but for people across the country who are food insecure, and that's shameful. At the same time, they got $14 billion from Climate Smart Agriculture and the Inflation Reduction Act and said, well, it's not a cut because we're using that money to fund agriculture. You know what? Those are two different programs, and we need both. And they are very skilled at cutting things, gutting things, and then lying about it, which is one more reason why Derek Van Orden needs to go. So as you can see, I'm not afraid to challenge Derek Van Orden. And in fact, in April of this year, I started a website called debatemederek.com because I knew he was going to be running from the truth, hiding from constituents, and afraid of anyone brave enough to hold him to account every day of the week. And every time I see him, he likes to come to my assembly district because he's certainly keeping an eye on me. I like to publicly ask him, when are you going to debate me, Derek? Well, he hasn't answered yet, but here are my conditions because he told a reporter at the RNC, we'll see. If I debate anyone, it'll be on my terms, he said. My conditions are, I'll debate you on your terms as long as they don't include that I'm not allowed to speak. So I am ready to take on Derek Van Orden. I am ready to be your general nominee. I'm ready to help Democrats up and down the ticket to not only flip the House blue, but re-elect Senator Baldwin, elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz as President and Vice President of our United States. And we're going to flip 80-96 blue and re-elect Brad Pfaff too. Let's go. We've got work to do. So with me as your general nominee, I will be knocking doors for your candidates, helping them raise money, and most importantly, we will be taking Derek Van Orden to task and winning in November. So who's ready? Yeah. Let's go, everybody. We're going to fight and win August and then November. We need your help by signing up for a shift to knock doors and make some phone calls. My staff, Jasper, Lucas, and James, if you want to raise your hands, any of them can talk to you about this campaign and how you can help. But between now and tomorrow at 8 p.m., we've got as many voters as possible to talk to, and we know that together we will win. Let's do this, Viroqua. Thank you all so much.